46.1%. Just keep that number in your head for a second.
It's a huge number.
Nearly half of India's entire workforce is out there right now working in the fields. But here's the catch. They're generating less than 1/5 of the country's income.
And that, right there, is the paradox. It's probably the single biggest structural challenge in the Indian economy today.
Hello and welcome, learners. You are listening to another high-energy, high-impact deep dive on Simplified UPSC by PPP. I am absolutely pumped for today's session because we are about to crack the code of, well, what is arguably the most critical document for your preparation.
The Economic Survey for 2025-26. It really is the document that sets the tone for the entire year. It's the government's own report card and, its roadmap for the future.
Exactly. And today we are zeroing in on the lifeblood of the Indian economy. We are doing a full line-by-line, no stone unturned analysis of Chapter 6, Agriculture and Food Management, raising productivity, securing incomes, and ensuring food security.
And this is a heavy chapter. I mean, let's be honest, it's dense.
Yeah.
But it's also a complete goldmine for the exam.
A gold mine, how?
Well, if you want to understand the real structural shifts happening in rural India, or if you want to write an amazing answer that actually, scores those extra marks, you need the data we're about to discuss.
Okay, before we jump into the charts and the schemes, and there are a lot of them, I just have a very humble request for all of you listening. We put a massive, and I mean a massive amount of research into these deep dives to make your life easier.
We really do.
So if you're serious about your preparation and you find real value in what we do, please just take a second and hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. And look, if you're capable and you want to support the hard work that goes into creating this super useful content, please do consider joining our paid membership on YouTube.
And on that note, a huge, huge shout out to all of our existing members. Your support literally keeps the lights on here, and it allows us to go this deep into the material. So please do like this session, share your valuable comments. We read every single one of them.
We do. And they really help us shape future episodes. Also, a quick resources alert before we dive in. For everyone listening, the free notes for this chapter, along with practice previous year questions, the PYQs are already up on our Telegram channel. The link's in the description. Go grab them.
And for our legend YouTube members, make sure you check the Discord channel. We've uploaded the premium notes, some extra PYQs, and this is really crucial model mains answers that are tailored specifically to this chapter. So yeah, do join us there to get that extra edge.
All right, let's get into it. Chapter 6. The title itself is a roadmap, raising productivity, securing incomes, and ensuring food security. So what's our mission for today?
The mission is pretty simple. We are not just summarizing, we're decoding. We're going to look at the raw text of the survey, but we're going to view it through the lens of the UPSC exam.
So you're acting as the bridge.
I'm trying to be the bridge, yeah. Between this dense government data and what UPSC actually demands in prelims and mains, we're going to link every concept we can to a past question so you can see exactly why this stuff matters. And to be clear, we are not skipping anything.
I love it. Let's start with the big picture then, part 1, the macro view. The survey kicks off with that classic structural transformation problem I teased right at the start.
It does. And let's look at the hard data, because that's what counts. Agriculture contributes nearly 1/5 of our national income. The gross value added, or GVA, is hovering somewhere between 18 to 20%.
Okay, so about a fifth.
But as you said, it employs 46.1% of the workforce. That data is fresh. It's from the PLFS survey covering July 2023 to June 2024.
Okay, so let's just sit with that for a second. Let's unpack it. Nearly 20% of the money, but almost 50% of the people. That sounds like a massive imbalance. Why is it still like this?
It's the textbook definition of a structural imbalance. In a fully developed economy, you'd expect something different. As the share of agriculture in GDP drops, the share of people working in it should drop at a similar, rate.
The Lewis model of development.
Exactly. People should move from farms to factories or into the service sector. But in India, that transition has been, sticky. We have almost half our population generating only 1/5 of the national income.
So why aren't they moving? Why isn't the farmer becoming a factory worker?
It's a great question. And the simple answer is because the factories aren't there in sufficient numbers to absorb them all. India kind of leapfrogged. We jumped from an agrarian economy to a services economy.
Right, the IT boom.
The IT boom, exactly.
Yeah.
But you can't take a farm laborer from a village in Bihar and put them in a coding job in Bengaluru overnight. It just doesn't work like that. We sort of missed that massive industrialization phase that countries like China or Vietnam had. So People stay on the farm.
And that creates what economists call disguised unemployment.
Disguised unemployment. It's when you have more people working on a plot of land that is actually necessary.
So if you took 3 people off the field, the output wouldn't even drop.
Precisely. Their marginal productivity is 0. But on paper, in the census or the PLFS, they count as employed. And what that does is it just depresses the per capita income for everyone in that sector. It pulls the average down.
And this, I'm guessing, connects directly to that keyword UPSC loves, inclusive growth.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the 2021 GS3 mains paper, question 2. The UPSC asked specifically about inclusive growth under a market economy. You simply cannot have inclusive growth if almost half of your workforce is stuck in a sector with significantly lower income generation compared to services or industry.
So this data point, the 46.1% versus 18% GVA, that's your evidence.
It's your primary evidence. You have to mention this structural lag to write a top-tier answer. It shows the examiner you understand the fundamental problem.
It also reminds me of another question, the one about the feminization of agriculture.
Yes. From 2014, GS1 mains, question 14. It's directly related. As men migrate to cities for construction work or low-end service jobs, what we call circular migration, it's often the women who are left behind to manage the farm.
So that 46.1% figure.
A very significant chunk of that is female labor. And often, it's unpaid or underpaid family labor, which doesn't even get fully counted sometimes.
Okay, so the sector is crowded, but is it growing? What does the survey say about the growth trajectory?
It is growing.
Yeah.
But the source of that growth is shifting, and this is where it gets really, really interesting. The average annual growth rate for the whole sector over the last decade, from about FY16 to FY25, has been 4.4% at constant prices.
4.4%. That sounds pretty decent for agriculture. I remember a time when we were celebrating if it hit 2%.
It is remarkably resilient, especially given climate shocks. But here's the secret sauce. It's not the crops that are driving this growth.
Really?
Yeah. The crop sector, your wheat, rice, pulses, that's growing at a steady but not spectacular 3.5%. But livestock. Livestock is growing at 7.1%. And fisheries is just rocketing ahead at 8.8%.
Wow. So hold on. The cows, the chickens, and the fish are outperforming the wheat and the rice.
By a huge margin. This is the real structural transformation that's happening within the agriculture sector itself. Agriculture is no longer just about farming in that traditional crop-based sense. It's about a diversified food basket.
This sounds like it validates that old concept of the pink revolution, doesn't it?
Spot on. Think back to 2013, GS3 mains, question 6. The UPSC asked about the pink revolution in the food industry. That was over a decade ago. Today, the economic survey is giving us the hard data to prove that the shift UPSC was hinting at has actually happened. The livestock and fisheries sectors are the new engines of rural growth.
And for a farmer, this isn't just about GDP numbers. This must be a huge deal for their income security.
It's everything. Think about it. Crops are seasonal. You harvest, you sell, you get a lump sum, and then you wait. It's lumpy, unpredictable income. But livestock, milk production is a daily cash flow. Poultry is a short cycle.
So it smooths out the income over the year.
It smooths consumption. This is absolutely crucial for the goal of doubling farmers' income. If a crop fails because of a bad monsoon or a pest attack, the livestock acts as a kind of insurance policy. It's the buffer.
Okay, so we have growth, but we also have a lot of people in the sector. That brings us squarely to the efficiency question. Productivity. The survey has some pretty stark charts comparing us to the rest of the world.
Yes, charts 6.5 and 6.6 in the survey. They are real eye-openers. They compare India's yield, so kilograms per hectare in things like cereals, maize, and soybean against the global average, and specifically against China and Brazil.
And how do we stack up? Give us the honest truth.
We're lagging. I mean, there's no other way to put it. In cereals and maize, our yield per hectare is significantly lower than China's. Brazil is just way, way ahead of us in soybean. For many pulses, too, we're trailing the global averages. We're using the land, but we just aren't getting the most out of it.
Is there any bright spot at all, or is it all bad news on the productivity front?
There is one. Groundnut. That's the exception the text specifically mentions. India is performing relatively well there. But for the major staples that feed the country, we have what's called a yield gap.
So why is that? Why can a Chinese farmer squeeze more rice out of a single hectare than an Indian farmer can? Is it something to do with the soil?
It's a combination of factors, but it really boils down to 3 things: technology, input efficiency, and scale.
Scale. You mean land holding size?
Exactly. We have incredibly fragmented land holdings. The average farm size in India is just over 1 hectare. It's almost impossible to apply modern technology or mechanization efficiently on a tiny 1-acre plot.
And China and Brazil?
China has managed to consolidate land better in many areas, and Brazil uses massive industrial-scale farming. We're talking thousands of hectares under a single management. It's a completely different model.
And the survey also talks about regional disparities within India too, right?
Yes, and this is critical for a mains answer. The yield gap isn't just between India and the world, it's between Punjab and Bihar. Punjab might be close to global standards for wheat, but a state in the east like Bihar or Odisha might be at half that efficiency, even though they have good water resources and fertile soil.
This sounds like the kind of analytical logic you'd need for that 2021 GS1 mains question, Q16.
Correct. That question was technically about the uneven distribution of mineral resources, but the logic of regional disparity is a universal theme in UPSC GS1 geography. You can apply the same framework. Why do some regions excel in productivity while others lag? It's about infrastructure, policy implementation, access to credit, everything.
Okay, so if we want to fix this yield gap, we need to look at the inputs, the basic building blocks of farming. Let's start with the most fundamental one, seeds.
The foundation. You can have the best tractor, the best irrigation, but if the seed is bad, the crop is bad. Simple as that. The survey highlights the submission on seeds and planting materials, or SMSP.
And under that, they've set up these seed villages. What exactly is a seed village?
It's a great concept. Ideally, a farmer shouldn't have to go to the market every single year and buy expensive certified seeds. A seed village basically trains a group of farmers in a village to produce high-quality seeds themselves. They learn how to treat them, store them, and then supply them to the rest of the village at a much lower cost.
So it decentralizes seed production?
It decentralizes it and makes it more affordable. The survey says there are about 6.85 lakh of these villages.
But there's a new announcement, too, something from the union budget this year, 2025-26.
Yes, and this is a big one, very important for prelims. The National Mission on High-Yielding Seeds. The target is ambitious, to develop and release over 100 new climate-resilient varieties.
Climate resilient, that has to be the key word there.
It's absolutely non-negotiable now. We are seeing heat waves in March that are killing wheat yields. They call it terminal heat stress. The temperature just spikes and the grain shrivels. We need seeds that can handle that kind of stress.
And how does this connect back to past questions?
Take a look at 2014 prelims, question 94. It asked about seed replacement rates and the constraints involved. The options talked about the national seeds policy, private sector participation.
So what the survey is doing now is providing an update.
It's basically an update to that whole discussion. The constraint is still the availability and adoption of good seeds. This new national mission is the government's latest attempt to push those replacement rates higher with better, tougher seed technology.
Okay, from seeds to the next critical input, water. We always hear that slogan, per drop, more crop.
That's the motto of the PM Krishi Sinchai Yojana, the PMKSY. And the survey gives us a hard number to use in our answers. 93.06 lakh hectares have been covered under micro-irrigation between 2015 and 2025.
93 lakh hectares, that sounds like a huge number, but I guess in the grand scheme of things, our total sown area, we still have a long way to go.
We do. Our net sown area is around 140 million hectares, so it's still a fraction. But the direction of the shift is what's important. And this directly answers 2021 GS3 Mains question 4, which asked how micro-irrigation helps in solving the water crisis.
So you can quote that number directly.
Exactly. When you write 93.06 lakh hectares have been covered under PMKSY, you're not just giving a vague opinion, you're citing an administrative fact from the economic survey. That gets you marks. The policy priority is clear. Shift away from wasteful flood irrigation to drip and sprinkler systems.
All right, let's talk about the health of the soil itself. Fertilizers. I feel like this is always a controversial topic because of the subsidies.
It is. And the survey is surprisingly candid about it. It explicitly discusses the imbalance in NPK use, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
The ideal ratio is 4.2.1, right?
That's the textbook ideal. But because urea, which is nitrogen, is so heavily subsidized, farmers overuse it like anything. In some districts, the ratio is skewed wildly, like 30.8.1.
Because it's cheap, so they just throw it on the field thinking more is always better.
That's the mindset. And what it does is it destroys the soil's organic carbon content and its long-term fertility. It makes the plants look lush and green, but they're physically weak and more prone to pest attacks. It's a classic case of a subsidy causing a massive ecological distortion.
This is ringing a bell. There was a mains question on this.
2013 GS3 Mains question 5. The question was on agricultural subsidies and distortions. The survey basically admits that the nitrogen subsidy distorted soil health.
So what's the solution they're proposing?
It's a multi-pronged approach. First, soil health cards, SHC, to tell farmers what their soil actually needs. Second, new technology like nano-urea, which is more efficient. And third, something new called urea gold.
Urea gold, what's that?
It's urea coated with sulfur. The coating makes it release nitrogen more slowly so the plant can absorb it better and less is wasted into the environment.
And then there's that scheme with the very memorable name PM-PRANAM.
Yes. The Program for Restoration, Awareness, Nourishment, and Amelioration of Mother Earth.
They really worked hard on that acronym.
The government loves a good acronym. But the mechanism behind it is genuinely fascinating. It's about fiscal federalism. It tries to incentivize states to reduce their chemical fertilizer usage.
How does it do that?
It's basically a savings passback scheme. Look, the central government has a huge fertilizer subsidy bill. So under PM-PRANAM, the center tells the states, if you can reduce your chemical fertilizer consumption and save us, say, 100 crores in subsidy payments, we will give you 50 crores of that savings back as a grant that you can use for any development you want.
Oh, that's brilliant. It aligns the incentives perfectly.
It does. The state gets development funds, the center saves money, and the soil gets a break. It's designed to promote alternative fertilizers like biofertilizers and organic manure. This directly addresses the distortions part of that 2013 mains question.
Okay, let's move from the soil to the machinery. Tractors, harvesters, and now drones.
Mechanization. The main scheme is the Submission on Agricultural Mechanization, SMAM. But the challenge, once again, is our small landholdings. A small farmer with 1 hectare can't buy a 10 lakh rupee tractor. It makes zero economic sense.
So the solution is the custom hiring centers, CHCs we talked about?
The Uber for tractors model. You don't own the car, you just pay for the ride when you need it. CHCs allow small farmers to rent expensive machinery only for the few days they need it during sowing or harvesting. The survey says over 25,000 of these centers have been set up.
It turns a huge capital expenditure into a manageable operating expense.
Exactly. CapEx to OpEx. And now, about the drones.
The Namo Drone DD scheme.
This is a flagship initiative. It's targeting 15,000 women's self-help groups, or SHGs. The women are trained to become drone pilots, and they can then offer services for spraying fertilizers and pesticides in their villages.
I just love that image, drone DDIS. And this connects right back to that feminization of agriculture point we made at the start, doesn't it?
It connects perfectly. Mechanization is the most direct answer to drudgery. If you can use a drone or a machine to do the spraying and weeding, the immense physical burden on women laborers decreases significantly. You're turning them from manual laborers into skilled tech operators. It can actually change the sociology of the village.
So we have the inputs. But to buy all these inputs, you need money. Let's talk about part 4, institutional support and specifically credit.
Credit is the lifeline. Without it, nothing moves. The government's big push here is the Kisan credit card KCC saturation drive. They want every single eligible farmer to have one.
Why saturation? Why is it so important that everyone has a KCC?
Because the alternative is the local moneylender, the sahukar. If a farmer doesn't have access to institutional credit from a bank, they are forced to borrow from the moneylender at, 36% or 48% annual interest. It's a debt trap.
And once you're in that trap, any profit you might make from a good harvest just goes into paying off the interest.
You never get ahead. The KCC offers credit at an effective rate of 4% or 7%. It breaks the monopoly of the informal lender. The saturation drive is about reaching that last mile, the tribal farmer, the farmer in a remote hilly area, the person who has always been outside the formal banking system.
And there's an interest subvention scheme attached to this as well.
Yes, the MISRS, the Modified Interest Subvention Scheme. It's pretty straightforward. If you repay your KCC loan on time, you get a 3% incentive, a rebate. So the effective interest rate drops to just 4%. It's a way to reward good financial discipline.
Now, hold on. This reminds me of a prelims question.
2020 prelims, question 61. It was a great question. It asked about what constitutes public investment in agriculture. It gave a list of options. One option was waiver of loans, and another was computerization of PASS.
PASS being the primary agricultural credit societies.
Sure.
And there's a world of difference between those two options.
A world of difference. A waiver of loans is just spending money to erase existing debt. It's a consumption expenditure, not an investment. It doesn't build any asset for the future. But computerization of PASS or building a cold storage unit, that is an investment. The survey really emphasizes this distinction. We need investment to build capacity, not just waivers that fix a temporary problem.
There was another tricky question on the interest coverage ratio in that same year's paper, 2020 prelims, Q62.
Yes. That ratio basically measures how easily a company, or in this case a farm, can pay the interest on its outstanding debt. If farm income is low and volatile, the interest coverage ratio is poor, which makes banks very hesitant to lend. That's why schemes like MIS-YES are so important. They lower the interest burden and improve that ratio, making farmers more bankable.
Speaking of investments, let's talk about the markets. The survey highlights ENM and the Agri-Infrastructure Fund, AIF.
The AIF is a game changer, just in terms of sheer scale. The survey says they are mobilizing 1.23 lakh crore.
1.23 lakh crore. That is a massive, massive number. Where is all that money going?
Post-harvest management. This is for building cold storages, warehouses, ripening chambers, silos. The entire idea is to stop the incredible wastage that happens. We grow enough food, but we lose a huge percentage of it between the farm gate and the consumer's plate simply because it rots.
And this is structured as a PPP model, right? A public-private partnership.
That's the core idea, yes. It uses public funds in the form of interest subvention to de-risk private investment. So if you're a private entrepreneur, a startup, and you want to build a warehouse, the AIF makes the bank loan much cheaper for you.
So that links directly to 2022 GS3 mains Q1.
Exactly. That question asked about PPP models and infrastructure. The AIF is a classic textbook example of using government support to trigger private asset creation in the agricultural infrastructure space.
Okay, we touched on the pink revolution earlier, but let's do a proper deep dive into the allied sectors in part 5. You said livestock is growing really fast.
It is. The government has major schemes like the Rashtriya Gokul Mission, which focuses on indigenous cattle breeds, and the National Livestock Mission. But the key takeaway for an aspirant here is about income stability.
The smoothing of income we talked about.
Precisely. Crop income comes in twice a year if you're lucky. Dairy income can be daily or weekly. It provides a steady cash flow for the rural household to meet its daily needs.
And what about fisheries, you kind of the sunrise sector?
Well, an annual growth rate of 8.8% speaks for itself. The flagship scheme has been the PM-Matsya Sampada Yojana, PMSY.
But the survey mentions a new scheme, one that was launched in February 2024. I want to make sure our listeners catch this because new schemes are prime prelims fodder.
Absolutely. This is the PMMKSSY. That's the Kisan Samriddhi Sayojana.
That's quite a mouthful. What does this new scheme actually do?
It's really focused on the formalization of the fisheries sector. It's about creating a national digital registry of all fishermen, helping them get insurance, and improving the value chains for their catch. It's about treating fisheries as a structured industry, not just a disparate, informal activity.
And I noticed that the Kisan credit card, the KCC, has now been extended to cover these sectors too.
That was a hugely important reform. For years, the KCC was only for crops. Now, a fisherman or a dairy farmer can also get a KCC for their working capital loans.
Why is that such a big deal?
Because traditionally, banks wouldn't lend to a fisherman. What collateral could he show? He didn't own land. Now, with the KCC extension, his legitimate working capital needs, diesel for his boat, ice to store the fish, feed for his ponds, are recognized by the formal banking system. This financial inclusion is a massive driver behind that 8% and 7% growth we're seeing.
And just to close the loop on the PYQs here.
2018 GS3 mains. There was a question on the Blue Revolution. The economic survey is essentially providing the latest progress report on that question. We're now seeing the concrete results of the Blue Revolution in our production figures and export numbers.
All right, let's shift gears to the topic that makes headlines every single year, price and income support, part 6, the MSP, the minimum support price.
The survey reiterates the government's commitment to the MSP policy. The formula is fixed. It will be at least 1.5 times the all-India weighted average cost of production. This principle was established back in the 2018-19 budget.
And it covers 22 mandated crops. But we all know, in practice, it's mostly effective for rice and wheat because of procurement.
That is the practical reality on the ground. And this links directly to 2020 prelims, question 63, which asked about the factors affecting the price of rice. MSP is a major, if not the major factor. It sets the floor price for the market.
But the policy analyst in you must be thinking, is MSP, in its current form, the best tool?
Well, the survey hints at the need for calibrated diversification. It discusses the idea of using MSP and other price signals to actively encourage farmers to shift away from water-guzzling crops like paddy, especially in states like Punjab, and towards things like pulses or oil seeds.
Can you explain how MSP could be used as a tool for that? Because right now, the guaranteed procurement of rice and wheat seems to be the reason farmers don't diversify.
That's the great paradox. Farmers are rational economic actors. They grow what sells reliably. The government buys wheat and rice through FCI, so they grow wheat and rice. To encourage diversification, the government has to send a very strong and credible signal that it is willing to support other crops just as strongly.
So higher MSPs for pulses.
Not just higher MSPs, but also the procurement infrastructure to back it up. The survey does note that the percentage increase in MSP for pulses and oilseeds has been higher than for wheat and rice in recent years. So they are trying to send that price signal. Please grow lentils. Please grow mustard. We will support you.
Which brings us to the other pillar of support, PM-Kisan. This is different. This is direct cash.
It's a direct benefit transfer, or DBT, scheme, and the number is staggering. 4.09 lakh crore have been released directly into farmers' bank accounts so far. That is a massive amount of liquidity pumped directly into the rural economy.
So why do this instead of just, say, making fertilizers even cheaper?
This brings us right back to that 2015 GS3 mains question Q5, which asked to compare price subsidy versus DBT. Price subsidies, like for cheap urea, distort markets and damage the soil, as we discussed. A DBT, a cash transfer, is neutral. The farmer gets the cash and can use it to buy whatever they need most: good quality seeds, labor for weeding, or maybe to fix the fence. It empowers the farmer to make their own decisions, and there's far less leakage.
Now, farming is inherently a risky business. You've got weather, pests, price crashes, so part 7 of the chapter is on risk management.
And the flagship scheme here is PMFBY, the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, our crop insurance scheme. The survey notes a very significant 32% increase in the number of farmers insured in the 2024-25 season.
That's a big jump. Is technology helping drive this adoption?
Big time. The survey talks about the use of YesTech.
YesTech.
It stands for Yield Estimation System, based on technology. So instead of a government official having to go to a field and manually cut a small patch of the crop to estimate the yield, a process that's slow and prone to disputes, they are now using remote sensing and satellite data.
And they're also using WINS.
Yes, the Weather Information Network and Data System. This provides granular, real-time weather data.
So the bottom line is faster and more accurate claim settlements.
That's the goal. The biggest complaint against crop insurance schemes in the past was always the delayed payments. This technology is meant to reduce the assessment and dispute time dramatically.
Let's talk about sustainability. The buzzword is natural farming.
There's a full-fledged national mission on natural farming, and related to that is the concept of conservation agriculture.
I have to stop you there because I remember a very, very specific prelims question about this. 2018 prelims, question 59.
You're right. That question asked which practices fall under the umbrella of conservation agriculture. And the survey explicitly confirms the definition for us. It lists 2 key principles: minimum tillage, which means you don't plow the land too much, and crop residue cover, which means you leave the stalks and stubble from the previous crop on the ground to retain moisture and build organic matter.
It's amazing how the survey directly provides the vocabulary you need to answer these technical prelims questions.
It does. If you read the survey carefully, you absorb the correct terminology.
Now, the survey mentions a brand new scheme, especially for aspirational districts. I don't want us to miss this one. PM Dan Danyo Krishi Yojana, or PMDDKY.
This is a critical new addition. The government has identified 100 aspirational agricultural districts.
What's the criteria for being on that list?
Basically, these are the laggards. Districts with low productivity, low cropping intensity, and very limited access to credit. The PMDDKY is designed as a targeted intervention to lift these specific districts up by improving irrigation, credit flow, and storage infrastructure, specifically in these 100 pockets.
This links perfectly to that 2021 GS3 mains question on the challenges of crop diversification. These districts likely suffer from monocultures or very low agricultural diversity, so this scheme is an attempt to fix that by targeting the weakest links in the chain.
Okay, moving on to part 8. Food management. This is the other side of the coin. Growing the food is one thing. Managing it to feed 1.4 billion people is a whole other challenge.
The system is colossal. You have the MCI, the Food Corporation of India, which procures the grain, stores it, and then sends it out through the PDS, the public distribution system. The big headline scheme the survey highlights is, of course, the PMGKAY.
The Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Free food grains for 81 crore people for the next 5 years, starting from January 2024. It is the world's largest food security program by far, but it comes with a huge economic cost. The survey explains the concept of the food subsidy, which is simply the difference between the economic cost. what it actually costs the government to buy, store, and transport 1 kilo of grain, and the central issue price, which is now zero for the consumer.
And we have technology being used here as well.
Yes, the Anna Chakra optimization tool.
Anna Chakra, I like the name.
It's essentially a route optimization tool for grain movement. Think of it as Google Maps for FCI's trucks and trains. It helps them find the most efficient route to move grain from surplus states like Punjab to consuming states like Kerala, saving fuel and time.
And of course, ONORC.
One ration card.
Yeah.
This has been a revolutionary step for portability. It directly answers the challenges mentioned in 2022 GS3 Main's Q3, which was about the PDS and transparency. ONORC solves the problem of exclusion for migrant laborers. A worker from Bihar who is working in Mumbai can now draw his ration share in Mumbai while his family back home can draw their share in their village.
Now, let's talk about a growing tension. The tension between food security and energy security. I'm talking about ethanol blending.
The classic food versus fuel debate. The survey has a dedicated box on this, box Vitae.2, which is a must-read. It discusses the trade-offs. The big push right now is to use maize as a feedstock for producing ethanol.
It sounds like a bit of a moral dilemma, doesn't it? We have millions of hungry people, but we're talking about turning corn into fuel for cars.
It is a very complex trade-off,
Yeah.
but you have to see the other side. India imports a massive amount of crude oil, which drains our foreign exchange reserves and imports inflation. On the other hand, we often have a surplus of sugar and sometimes a surplus of maize. The logic is, if we can divert that surplus to energy production, we can kill two birds with one stone. We support farmers who often suffer from a price glut, and we reduce our dependence on imported oil.
So why the specific focus on maize? Why not just use more sugarcane?
Water. Sugarcane is a water guzzler. Relying too much on it, especially in water-stressed regions, is unsustainable. Maize is significantly less water-intensive. The survey actually compares our approach to that of Brazil and the USA.
Which is exactly what a prelims question asked. I think it was 2025 prelims, Q63.
Yes, that question compared ethanol production in Brazil versus the USA. The survey notes that while the USA primarily uses corn, which is maize, Brazil uses sugarcane. India is trying to diversify its feedstock basket to balance all these needs. It's a trilemma, really. Food security versus energy security versus water security.
Finally, let's touch upon Part 9, food processing.
The ultimate sunrise sector for adding value to farm produce. The two big schemes here are the PLI scheme for food processing and PM-FBY, which is for the formalization of micro-food processing enterprises.
Why is this so significant?
Because, as we said, we waste too much. If a farmer's tomatoes rot on the way to the market, he gets 0 rupees. But if those tomatoes are processed into ketchup, their shelf life becomes months, and their market value triples or quadruples. Processing reduces wastage, creates non-farm jobs in rural areas, and boosts export income.
This sounds like the direct answer to the 2022 GS3 mains question, Q4, on the scope and significance of food processing.
It's the perfect answer. The survey highlights the value addition is the key to moving from food security to income security. You can't get rich by just selling raw wheat. You get rich by selling the biscuits and pasta made from that wheat.
So after all this, what does it all mean? Let's try to wrap this up in our conclusion. What's the way forward?
The survey is quite clear on the road ahead. It seems to point to 3 non-negotiable pillars. First, climate adaptation is not optional anymore. Second, a much greater role for private sector participation, especially in R&D and logistics. And third, a strengthened cooperative sector, empowering farmer-producer organizations, FPOs, and primary agricultural credit societies, PALES.
So we can't just keep relying on the old ways and the old subsidies.
No. There's a fundamental shift in thinking that the survey is reflecting. We are moving from a singular focus on food security, which was all about quantity, about having enough grain in the go-downs, to a more holistic vision of nutritional security, which is about quality, and income security, which is about sustainability.
That's a powerful shift. From just filling stomachs to filling bank accounts and ensuring long-term health.
And here's a provocative thought I want to leave you, the listener, with. With climate change making our yields more and more unpredictable, with these heat waves, the erratic monsoons, can India realistically maintain its status as a net food exporter without a radical and perhaps painful shift in its cropping patterns? Can we afford to keep exporting billions of liters of virtual water in the form of rice and sugar forever?
That is a very heavy question to end on.
It's the question that will define the next decade of Indian agriculture. When this survey talks about crop diversification and sustainable agriculture, it's really code for we simply cannot continue with business as usual.
Wow. We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from the macro employment data right down to the specifics of drone schemes and ethanol trade-offs.
And we linked it all back to the exam. That's the most important part. Don't just read the data. Learn how to use the data to answer the questions UPSC is asking.
Exactly. Learners, if you found value in this very, very deep dive, please, I'm asking you again, please subscribe to Simplified UPSC by PPP.
And if you're in a position to, please do join the paid membership. It supports us directly and allows us to keep bringing you this kind of super useful, in-depth content.
A massive shout out one last time to our existing members. Please like this video and share your comments below. We genuinely love hearing from you.
And don't forget the resources. Free notes and practice PYQs are on our Telegram channel.
And for our Legend members, the premium notes, the extra PYQs, and those all-important model mains answers are waiting for you right now on Discord. Go and join there.
Keep learning.
And keep growing. We'll see you in the next deep dive.